Hello and welcome to this guide for the Mythic Conclave of the Chosen Encounter on the PTR server. We got to see most of the encounter, and as such I can provide you with as good of a guide as possible. First, let's go over the Loa and their individual abilities. Paku will spawn in the middle, fly around the arena shortly before landing. Once she has landed, she will start casting Paku's Wrath. This will greatly damage people who's not at her feet, while dealing manageable damage to people at her feet. Gonk will cast Gonk's Wrath, spawning raptors which will fixate on random targets. These will only have to be killed off every time. These raptors can be stunned and slowed, with the exception of when they are close to each other, gaining Pack Hunter, making them immune to crowd control for 5 seconds, as well as gaining 75% movement speed. Kimball will cast Kimball's Wrath, leaping towards the random enemies, dealing quite a bit of physical damage as well as causing bleeding wound. This dot never goes away and can be applied to more than the main target if they are not properly spread. Akunda will cast Akunda's Wrath, which will electrify random enemies, exploding after 6 seconds, dealing damage to any nearby enemy. When it explodes, it will also cause Static Orb to go outward, damaging and stunning any enemy hit by them. Kragwa will cast Kragwa's Wrath, making a frog leap to the farthest enemy location, dealing moderate damage and knocking back anyone standing in it. Luckily, this is fairly easy to dodge. Wonsamdi will cast Wonsamdi's Wrath every 1 minute. This is a dispellable debuff that jumps to a nearby target if the one afflicted by it dies or is dispelled. You can look on it as a debuff that only has to be dispelled when someone legit got to be healed. The damage taken overall for DPS and healers in this encounter isn't that great, so it should be manageable. Now to move on to the aspects and their abilities. For tanks, this can be compared to the Coven of Shivara. The bosses got to stay at least 7 yards apart, so not to buff each other with lowest pact. It is also a viable tactic to simplify this encounter with 3 tanks for the tank swapping, making it less hectic. Every time an aspect dies, it buffs the remaining aspects and healing them to full health, increasing their damage dealt by 15%, as well as stacking. You got to keep healing cooldowns ready and some personals due to Cry of the Fallen, dealing about 15,000 damage every 0.5 seconds for 6 seconds. Let's start with the aspects that require tank swapping. Paku's aspect got 2 abilities. It will buff every ally with 45% haste and 75% movement speed. This can be dispelled. The tanking ability is Hastening Winds. With consecutive attacks at the same target, his attack speed is increased by 8% and this stacks. With 3 tanks we found it beneficial to just swap once taunt is off cooldown, to minimize damage taken, but we did experience tanks managing up to 20 to 25 stacks with a good use of cooldowns. Kimball's aspect only got 1 ability, being the tanking ability. Lacerating Claws, dealing a great amount of damage on impact and leaving the target with a bleed that lasts for 45 seconds, which stacks. We chose to swap on 2 stacks, but a Paladin can reset the stacks with Divine Shield and Hand of Protection. Gonk's aspect got 2 abilities, one of which being familiar to anyone doing a Dazar'alor. Crawling Hex will transform you into a tiny raptor. You have to move out of the group and either let it run out or be dispelled. She also got Raptor form, inflicting quite a bit of damage to all targets in front of the caster every 0.5 seconds for 4 seconds. Akunda's aspect will cast Thundering Storm to a tank and all enemies close to him, as well as Mind Wipe, needing to be dispelled as soon as possible as it basically removes all of your abilities. This might overall look very threatening with all of the abilities going on around you. Once you learn when to spread and move out, it is a rather simple fight, since most abilities are fairly self-explanatory and not very punishing. Thank you for watching, and I will update the guide when this fight goes live.